Hey, world. This is Chama from Japan. How you guys doing? You know what? Yesterday, I saw the news that about Europe, VAT fraud. And according to the European Public Prosecutor Office, the police across Europe arrested 43 people and seized 520 million euro in the European investigation into criminal conspiracy to evade VAT through the money laundering. VAT fraud takes advantages of EU regulations on the cross-border transaction between member states, and the scheme enabling them to trade goods through the fraudulent chain of missing traders who then vanish without fulfilling their tax obligations. You know, the world at the really bad or outrageous criminal, smuggling money and drugs, trafficking people on one side, and the world of white-collar criminal, which merely manipulate corrupted economic system, conducting financial frauds, accounting shenanigans, money laundering on the other side. So white-collar criminal, now more sophisticated, utilizing an organized crime network globally, and they can access in order for them to conduct various financial frauds, like calculations in Japan, you know? Oh, by the way, fabrication, falsification, plagiarism, pimp-on-a-pie, and sex scandal embezzlement, gaslighting, and you know, what else? The whole bunch of bogus. That's all about Shinua. Right, Torigai-san? How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing great! Alright. Oh, by the way, did you ditch police authority from your organizations? That's homework. Just do whatever it takes. That's actually the first priority, okay? That's your really important homework, alright? That's the only way you can survive, Torigai-san. I'm telling you. Okay? So, before analyzing the impact from the Trump tariff, it is probably beneficial to analyze VAT. And as you guys probably knew, not all the countries implement value-added taxes. In some nations, VAT is only applicable to the specific goods and services, while in others, it's a broad-based tax applied to most of the items. And when it comes to Japan, Japan applied a similar taxing method as the vast majority of the European countries do. But the Trump Agenda 47 would impose higher tax on the Chinese and Japanese products, and I would analyze the impact on the US tariff on the Japanese VATs and the Chinese economy in general, or maybe global economy in general, because Chinese economy is huge and the impact is enormous. And House of Representative elections held in Japan on September 27th. And this time, Liberal Democratic Party suffered from crushing defeat, and other political parties in Japan gained a large number of seats. Then, consumption tax cut became prominent topic among voters, including me in Japan right now. And however, there are some group of people who benefit when a consumption tax goes up. And those are mainly company that belongs to the Japan Federation of Economic Organizations. Also, we call them Keidanren. Keidanren is the political supporter of LDP, Liberal Democratic Party, for quite a long time. And they made a policy recommendation to the government using their influence over the LDP. For over 20 years now, representative, the Keidanren, and has made it has been pretty much advocating the idea of the consumption tax should be raised. And every chairman from time to time argued that, I think it has started around 2004, that consumption tax should be increased. It may actually literally increase by 1% every freaking year so far from 2004. And right now it's at 10%. And they're aiming toward 16%. But what may come up is a question. Why do they want to raise the consumption tax, which potentially damages large firms' revenue, right? To answer this question, there is basically two reasons. The one is relatively simple to figure out. That's because the corporate tax cut and the consumption tax increase is combined in Japan. So if you take a look at the past trend and the corporate tax rates, they have consistently been in a downward trend as consumption tax goes up, on exactly the same timing. That's one reason why consumption tax goes down. Second is based on, the Keidan lens, I think, the strategic perspective of, maybe, they want to stick to the protectionism, which makes the Japanese product more attractive to the domestic market compared to the American products. What I mean by this is that they can manipulate whatever the accounting differences between the consumption tax system in the United States and Japan. To take a specific example, in Japan, consumption is taxed on a work-in-progress product traded between company during the manufacturing process. In contrast, in the United States, consumer only pays retail sales tax, right? Which is about 0 to 10%, I think, varying from state to state. And a company which sell the final product merely pay the tax based upon whatever the percentages for retail sales tax statute defined. That's the United States, right? Therefore, when Japan sells the Japanese product in the United States, the government pays the Japanese exporter tax refund. Because company, you know why? Because, the Japanese government's going to pay tax refund. That's because the company sells the final product already paid the consumption tax indirectly through the mechanism of the value-added taxes in their manufacturing process to the government, although they did not make any sales in the domestic market. So, of course, when exporting items to the United States, retail sales tax paid from the American customers must be paid eventually to the United States, right? Which causes the double taxation for Japanese companies. So that tax refund would be paid for those losses in trading. And that is the reason why large firms want to increase consumption tax. Now, astonishingly, consumption tax refund generated from this international trade would be nearly 2 trillion Japanese yen every year. However, the reality, especially from the macroeconomic perspective, is slightly more complicated. For example, in industrial structure, such as the automobile industry, where manufacturer brands are top of the hierarchy, manufacturers often put undue pressures on subcontractors or vendors to lower their prices. Therefore, it is questionable whether top brands like Nissan or Toyota are placing orders with their vendors at the price that includes consumption tax, because they can put the pressure on them. And literally, Toyota and Nissan have historically received administrative guidance or sanction, maybe, from the fair trade commissions in the Japanese government. So the problem is that they allowed manufacturers to unfairly receive a refund from the government and export them overseas at lower prices. They try to make them competitive overseas. So what I would think right now, then Trump definitely understands this. Basically the structures of the consumption tax in Japan and Europe. and he will eventually impose some sanctions. Excuse me. Beyond them, it's invisible mechanism, negative impact that unnecessarily cheaper prices on a final Japanese product imported to the United States, taking into account of our capability of the Japanese company to reduce the selling price using tax refund. For that reason, Mr. President Trump is right now planning imposing uniform tax on the Japanese, Chinese, and European LA. In a document called Agenda 47, Trump clearly asserts U.S. imposed tariff on imported goods equivalent to the losses incurred in the United States due to the nature of value-added taxes of Japan and China. So I think the United States will demand fundamental reform of Japanese value-added tax system, if not, or reducing consumption tax per se, or maybe if not, he definitely think tariff as an arsenal to protect American economy. Under the higher exchange rate for the greenback, the possible decrease in the VAT will be offset by the possible U.S. tariff increase from the U.S. perspective, right? But in any event, the VAT decrease in Japan soothes consumer apprehensions that force us to suffer from long-lasting stagflation. So from a macroeconomic perspective, VAT decrease would have same impact on expansionary fiscal policy, fiscal stimuli on the economy, which will increase in domestic demand with lower prices, and I believe that Trump tariff would produce possibly positive impact on both countries, in which we'll be able to maximize economic benefit through the international trade for both Japan and the US, based on my economic intuitions. Then, Japan would inevitably rethink through the tax reform to react nicely this tariff imposed by the US. That's what I think. In the next podcast, I would assess the impact on the US tariff on the Chinese market, on the other hand, and eventually I would like to wrap up every aspect in order for us to forecast nicely the global economic outlook for year 2025. That's what I really want to do. And also I would like to hear your feedback and give me your thoughts about, economic outlook for next year. Oh, by the way, Torikai-san, I don't want to say this repetitively, but, I think first priority for you is ditching police power out of your organizations. That's your homework. Most critical homework that you need to prioritize in order to make Japan clean again as quickly as possible. So thanks for listening. Bye-bye.